Hi, I'm David King from The Collaborative. I'm joined by Katie Cusack, and today we have Sarah Van Buren from 24 Hour Drone at Basilica Hudson and the O Positive Festival in Kingston, also a DJ and a number of other things, artist. And so Katie and I, and actually almost the entire crew from OSM, were at 24 Hour Drone, and it was interesting because for some of us, we've done it before and knew what to expect in some ways, and other folks didn't, but I think came away with, a whole new sort of sense of what this was, and what the possibilities are even for next year. So, given that this is old hand for you, what's it like now being a few weeks away from this 24-hour event that took, I assume, quite a lot of planning to pull off?
Well, first of all, I wanted to say how impressed I was that all of you stayed up the whole time, because for the most part, it's the core team, all of us who have done it every year pretty much, and most other people sleep at least for a minute, So I was really psyched. You ran the gauntlet, and you're one of us now.
Well,
you become one of us.
For fairness, if we're going to bring this up, I think we should talk about this, because it was one of my favorite parts to see how people dealt with sleeping, because I cannot sleep in public spaces like that, and for years I would go to the city to see a run of X amount of shows from one band or whatever, and I'd be up for the 3 days because there was just no way that other people would sleep in the car or in the cafe or whatever, but I couldn't do it. So I knew I wasn't sleeping. Richard, our photographer who also has like an approach to this, because he's
like a sneaky sleeping champion.
Yeah, like he'll prop himself against the wall, standing, fall asleep for like 2 minutes, and wake up as he's falling. And it's a system he's developed. And he was explaining this. Yeah, and
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was insane. And
I thought, because I know he, last year, he had taken a few trips to the car.
Yep.
And would nap for 10 minutes and come back.
This year I'd say to Zeb, where's Richard? And then you'd sort of hear a snuffle, and then he'd be awake, and he'd walk downstairs to shoot like nothing had happened. But he was definitely asleep for a minute, and he's like, oh yeah, that's my technique. And I mean, that was interesting. And then Katie, I don't think I thought she was going to make it all night, but a few times we found her slumped against the wall.
Yeah, and Richard got a picture of me.
Of course he did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. I'm propped up between where everybody was set up for sound, and there's that side wall. Mm-hmm. I was literally between two steel beams, my whole body was stuck between them, and they were holding me up, and I was just
You were inside the I-beam?
Yeah.
That's a really interesting technique.
I was like, this way I won't.
Well,
because I could feel myself start to be between the.
When we were in the overlook and where the camera was set up, I came up and I decided there's no way I can do this and be sane for the rest of the night with a lot of coffee. And
we drank a lot of coffee.
Yeah. So I knew from my Hudson days that Dunkin' Donuts would be open. So I say I'm gonna go get coffee for everyone. And so I was like, oh, I'll take one. And Brendan's happy. I'm like, where's Katie? And they're like, well, she went over in that corner over there. The corner's dark. There's nothing over there. There's just I think she was charging her phone, and they're like, yeah, she hasn't come out. And I look over, and it's just pitch blackness. I'm like, I'm going to assume she wants a coffee. So I drive out.
My phone kept dying because I was doing all the Instagram stuff.
But yeah, I drive out, and I almost ran out of gas because I forgot I was.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and then and the people at the Dunkin' Donuts seemed a little confused about why my order was so big. But then I came back, and Katie was awake, and everyone was ready to go. So it was just everyone dealing with it in their own way, but it was fun.
It was.
It was great. Those hours from it's hard to place them, but I feel around 3, autonomy, that was so, yes. I was this is it. That was amazing. I love that so much.
She was so amazing. That was actually when I laid down. I didn't sleep, but I laid down on a bench behind the front of house.
Yeah.
But that was the perfect time for that.
Yeah, it was nice.
Really beautiful. Yeah, but to answer your initial
Sorry,
question, David.
yeah.
No, it's okay. I mean, there's a lot of processing that happens after you do something like that. And, like I was saying, we as a team, we try to do the debrief within the first week after the event, so everything's still fresh, so we can talk about what worked, what didn't work, what we can improve upon, what we can build upon. And then in addition to that, we like to hear from the artists, the attendees, anybody that was involved with the event to improve upon it, and also just to get their feedback. It's really nice to hear what people have to say about it. And the first year we did drone, I mean, way less people, much more of a hyper localized event. Folks in Albany probably didn't even know about it. We afterwards sent out a survey to the audience members to ask if they had dreams or if they slept or if they dreamt what they dreamt about, just to kind of get. I was just really interested in the whole point of this event is you're reaching liminal states with other people in a communal setting through sound and through sleep or lack thereof. And so I think considering that it takes you a while to recover from something like that. But I know that this year we're also, I don't know if this has happened yet, but there were quite a few audience members that were doing their own projects during the event, like knitting or drawing or writing or reading books. And so we were interested to find out what those people were doing, and is this some sort of durational project of their own that's kind of happening in tandem with the music, with the event.
That's something that I started noticing last year and was really looking for this year was people who were like sketching things and like writing diligently. Last year there was this group of people in front of me who were like really just like going at, and I was like, this is really something. So that's something that would be really interesting to learn is like if this is something that people line up in their plans for a year, like this is like, I know I'm going to drone and like this is going to help me push through this project that I'm working on. Like it's that meditative state that you reach, I think, during that whole 24 hours is like so powerful. That's like really, that'd be really interesting if people were willing to give feedback of like milestones that they've reached in their art, their own art through that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll keep you posted if we hear from these folks. Because I agree with you. I think that, anytime you're doing something communally, the power is heightened. And if we're, in some sense creating a portal, I mean, who knows what could be channeled through that creatively. I mean, that's essentially what that is. So.
I mean, for me, I came to terms pretty quickly with the idea. By that morning, it was deeply, like, overtly psychological for me. and by the morning, I was, contending with the idea that, okay, this is, I've talked to Melissa about this, and her sort of thoughts about it. And thinking I was perhaps in a more... how do I say this? That I had resolved more things within myself than I might have. And by the time morning rolled around, I realized, no, I want the tumultuous, angry, cathartic stuff because that's what I'm used to living with. And that's my mental state. And that's what keeps me feeling sharp and involved and whatever. But when it came to the morning where the trancey stuff started again and I was living with myself in this very tired state and I wasn't being drowned out by these waves of sound, I was like, no, I can't. It's me. It's just me and I'm left with myself and I'm not okay with that.
Whoa.
and I realized I don't want catharsis. I just want the turmoil.
That will drown out the other stuff.
And it didn't feel that way last year, so I don't know what's going on with me, but I guess I better go see a therapist. But
or cut down on your caffeine intake.
That's true. We were loaded up on caffeine. Yeah, that's true.
Gets deep on the podcast.
Yeah, we never know. Sorry, my daughter's just turned on YouTube in the corner. It's okay.
It's all right.
It's okay.
Thanks for your input, Asha.
This podcast is real life.
That was the theme music for.
Things got dark, and then we fixed it.
Dun, 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 dun.
Like LeVar Burton on Reading Rainbow.
Yes, that's what it sounded like.
But don't take my word for it.
Take a look.
So, I mean, Katie, what was your, well, first of all, I guess, Sarah, what were you looking forward to most about Drone? I mean, you're involved in planning, and was there something, a moment or a time of day that you were looking forward to, given what went into it?
This year was tough, actually. People kept asking me, like, what are your key things that you're really excited about? And I said, like 5 p.m. through 1 a.m. I couldn't really pick a particular thing. I mean, there were definitely some highlights in hindsight, some things that I really loved, but it was difficult on the front end because we really strive to present work that is disparate from one another. And then
Right.
the conversation is, how do those things connect? I mean, obviously they all connect because they're all drone, but are there other interesting intersections that you wouldn't expect? For instance, last year with the bagpipes, them being inserted into, in between some more sort of experimental noise kinds of settings. I mean, this year I think that happened again with Amelia Moon, who's actually locally based. Well, she's in Kingston, but she played right before Chris Anderson, who invents his own instruments that are super delicate glass harmonicas. I don't even know if that's the right word for it, but there are these pipey things with these glass tendrils coming off of them. But just even that confluence was really interesting because it was harmonious, even though you would think there would probably just be discord. So I think that's just a cool thing, is seeing how those things intersect, because in your mind you have this idea of what it's going to be like, and often it's not.
Yeah.
And sometimes it works really well, and sometimes it's more challenging. But I think either way, I like that surprise.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good point, to sort of like do the hindsight type, because you don't really know how it's all going to flow together, and you don't know what the moments are that are really going to like smack people in the face. You know what I mean? I feel like there's no other way to sort of describe what happens, but there's like this moment, because you're in that like drone, because you kind of get into the rhythm of it, I feel like, when you're there and you're just like walking around and you're in it, and then there are certain points that you're sort of like, wait, what was that? Like, and it shifts you, or it turns you around, or it sends you in a different direction, and it's just like there's a lot of that draws you in and out.
Definitely.
I was very surprised. I was taken aback by Reg Blor's performance, because she is such a virtuoso, and
She's such a badass.
yeah, but what she dropped was straight emotion and badassery.
Yeah.
And then we got to talk to her afterwards, and it was extremely powerful, to learn about what was fueling it, and but it caught me off guard because I didn't expect it to be that
Moving.
and blunt, and but then I thought the most nuanced and surprising performance for me was, and now I don't even remember their name. It's terrible. The experimental violinist and the local drummer, drone drummer.
That was Eva Bitova
Yes.
and Matt Norman.
That was sort of a revelation, and
Something too.
just the way her vocals would play, his drums were just so, that was, and I almost wasn't ready for it, because it happened earlier in the day, and it was so nuanced and sort of textured, and the idea that it was just two people kept sort of throwing me, but
Yeah, and their communication too is
Yeah.
really
No.
fascinating to be a part of, to watch.
Definitely.
Is really, I like that a lot.
The way they supported one another
exactly.
is really beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't surprising to me that I liked it, but obviously it was a surprise that they're there, that Big Brave and Jessica Moss playing together, and we got a chance to talk to them afterwards too, and it was like, we traded ideas on the internet for a little while. We had no idea. We thought it was bad. How bad was it? And I'm like, are you kidding me? That was just, it was amazing, their interplay,
Definitely.
the chords, and, but they were very humble and whatnot.
They are super humble,
Yeah.
but everything they do is amazing.
Yep.
I mean,
And they're both coming back for
for
Soundscape.
Soundscape. Yep. Psyched about that.
And then we also both talked to Jeremy Toussaint Baptiste, who we were blown away by completely. And looking at what he's done elsewhere, probably more nuanced and installation-based, but this is so raw and awesome. And it turns out that he has connections to a band that I'm a fan of and all that stuff. And so we've been talking to him since then.
Yeah. But it's nice to be able to have conversations with people about that.
Absolutely.
Because one thing about talking to Jeremy was sort of like getting the input of where his influences are in terms of sound, because like there are always, you know, like you expect people to say, oh, I've been super influenced by this and that band or this artist and that band, but then he was saying things like the sound of a broken refrigerator, and you know, like the sound of someone's like stereo being too loud in the car next to you, and like if you feel that vibration, and it's like those are the things that are like, well, okay, so like that's what you're getting to in and reaching those sounds, or like, and working with, he was mentioning like working with materials or instruments and stereos that are too old or too broken, and you're just like pushing through anyways, and you're finding that broken spot where it can't go anymore, and it's like fascinating to have those conversations.
It reminded me of my high school days with the broken, you know, a stack that was too broken, or you know, that blown out in the basement, but you're playing it anyway because it makes amazing noises. And I mean, obviously people do that all the time in their art, but like, or driving, I had a PA system that I connected to my car stereo, and it was the worst thing in the world, but man, it made the, you know, the industrial beats really ridiculous.
Crunchy.
Yeah. But it made, that conversation in particular made me think like, an element I'd like to see more of, whether it's through a magazine or whatever, are these, you know, artists don't need to explain themselves, or musicians don't need to, but at the same time, getting more of Jeremy's perspective was amazing.
Totally.
And I think everyone obviously has these more interesting stories to tell, and if they want to tell them, you know.
Absolutely. No, I mean, it's great to have a forum for that, especially because, you know, our printed program is just the bare essentials, so.
Well, but some artists did have obviously a companion piece, the map from.
From Choir.
Yes, that was awesome.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, that's essentially what I spend most of Drone doing, is talking to the artists about that stuff. So I really should record that now, I'm realizing.
Yeah. And it's hard to do. It's hard to catch those moments and to record moments like that.
When it's a natural conversation.
Right. Yeah, it's really tough. But it's just like so special to have sort of something that you can reference back to when you're listening to their work later, and you're like, you know, like that does kind of like harken back to that kind of sound, or oh, that does remind me of something that, you know, like I heard 15 years ago, and just like this memory pops up or something like that, and that's sort of interesting about it.
Well, maybe we need to create a drone zine for Drone 2020. We should talk about that.
I'm down.
We could reach out to all the artists. I mean, at this point, there's hundreds of artists that have participated in it.
Yeah.
That'd be cool. Yeah.
Think about that for later.
Lock that one away.
Yeah.
But you have a few months now before O+, or positive. Sorry.
It looks like, I mean, the way it reads is O+. But
I just see it as typo negative, but that's
totally.
No, but
R.I.P. Peter Steele.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we would have totally asked him to play O+, like, you know, years
perfect.
ago.
Yeah.
I mean, to my mind. Or maybe it would have had a weird, the forces would have. There would have been some kind of implosion.
Powerful.
Yeah. Typo negative at O+, like we would have ceased to exist. I don't know. But it's a nice idea.
Yeah. Oh my god.
So what goes into it now? Where are you in that?
Okay, good idea. Good question. Where am I?
Good eye. Should I think
Well, one thing I should mention is that I'm the festival producer for the Kingston Festival, which is sort of the flagship event. It's the origin of O+ as a nonprofit organization that's nationwide. They've done other festivals in other cities. So Poughkeepsie last year, they've done it outside Chicago, outside of somewhere in California. I can't remember the town. The Bronx, and they're actually doing one in North Adams for the first time this weekend, right now.
Yeah.
So the portion of the national team is really focused on that.
Cool.
But because I'm working on Kingston, at this point, we just did a bunch of new hires. There's a lot of timelines, kind of cat wrangling, organization stuff going on. I think that's a large part of what my job is wrangling people. We have a lot of meetings, talking about, I mean, this is year 10 for Kingston, and so it's also the organization's 10th birthday anniversary.
Yeah.
And so what does that look like? And so in terms of Kingston, as you probably know, like a lot of places in the Hudson Valley, it's suddenly growing exponentially with an influx of people, folks from moving away from the city to settle in Kingston. And how do we cultivate smart development and sustainable development in a place that doesn't displace the core citizens that have made that place what that place is. And it's like that age-old conversation about gentrification, which, I lived in New York City for 10 years, and I lived in Brooklyn, and I now live outside Hudson, and that same conversation is happening there.
It's following everyone.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's so I think in Kingston they're really mindful of this, and I mean Kingston is sort of poised to treat it differently because it was so emptied out. There's a lot of available space there. You can't really say that about Troy. Well, I don't know. Maybe you can say that about Troy, but you definitely can't say that about Hudson.
Yeah.
So the conversation is a little bit different because there is potentially space for everyone, but how do we make it so that people aren't displaced and we are a unified community? So we're bringing in some other partner organizations to help kind of stimulate that conversation, and that's like one of the themes around the 10th anniversary of O Positive is what do the next 10 years of Kingston look like? How do we create a sustainable situation for everybody here, and work with social justice organizations and other nonprofits that are based in Kingston and are doing good work to elevate everybody, not just the chosen few. So that's a big conversation that's happening.
I mean, the growth of Kingston is just so stunning because, when I was a kid and I was going to summer camp out there, I was going there for my mother's work, and IBM was sort of slowly and pulling out, and the husk. It was essentially a strip mall. At the end, there was a strip mall and a husk of empty corporate buildings. So to see what has become is just, it's stunning. The idea that there's a VHS store is like, there's a record store.
There is?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's just, it's amazing. And it's interesting to see that the arts are playing such a strong role in it.
Definitely.
Because that's obviously, I don't think what anyone figured when IBM was leaving. It was that they'd get IBM back or, or something,
In the form of smaller startups.
Yeah.
Because I actually have a few friends that work for a tech startup in Kingston that employs maybe like 50 or 60 people right on Wall Street there in uptown Kingston. So yeah, it's kind of a funny irony.
Yeah.
But yeah. So yeah, I mean, O Positive is very much a community-driven festival, and so it's important for us to listen to what the community needs to, and focus on those things. And there's a lot of different ways we can do that. There's many different branches to the O Positive Festival tree. You have the musical performers, you have artists, you have muralists, different kinds of visual art being presented or performance art. But then there's also Explore, which is health and wellness classes. There's a whole cycling component. There's the clinic, which is what we offer to all the artists and musicians and super volunteers that assist over the weekend. They get free access to this health and wellness clinic.
Yeah.
But then in addition to that, we have a conference where we have conversations about some of these topics, and we're bringing in other organizations to do like a literal soapbox kind of thing on Saturday afternoon, where members of different area organizations can get up and talk about what it is they do for the community. And bringing in Radio Kingston, they'll be broadcasting a lot of what we do. So yeah, it's very multifaceted.
Yeah. that's something that, having talked to just like one of the bands who is playing North Adams this weekend, that so many artists are drawn to this festival because of that like community health aspect and like the things that they're doing for artists and creatives who may not have access to the same level of healthcare that other people do, because we live in this like gig economy in terms of like people who are trying to pursue their art or creative career and also like live as a human being and like afford cost of living and go to the doctor when they need to go to the doctor. And it's just like things that you don't necessarily think of but that are so vital to community health, and to have a festival that's like making that happen, or like at least showing like general interest and like having those kinds of like classes and soapboxes and workshops and conferences. I mean, it's just like the more attention the better, I think.
Totally. Agreed.
And what is the process for bands or acts, artists to get involved?
So if you go on the website, if you just Google O positive Kingston, that's probably the easiest way to do it. It will come up and there's a big red button that says apply. And then that will take you to a series of links. So you just click on the appropriate one if you're a musician or if you're an artist, visual artist, or some kind of interdisciplinary artist. We definitely encourage interdisciplinary work for sure, and you know the crossover going on there. And then also any kind of health and healthcare or wellness practitioner can apply as a volunteer to work in the clinic, because we have about 100 clinic volunteers who all donate their time. Which is pretty incredible,
great.
Including my general practitioner, my doctor, Janine
Very
Wilson,
cool.
who's the best. So yeah, just go to the website. Or to be a volunteer too. We need volunteers. We usually have about 150 volunteers at the festival, so it's very much a volunteer-powered event.
All hands on deck.
Yes, for sure.
So you were one of the people in our Creatives Under 40 issue, and I wanted to ask, because it keeps well, it wasn't just us. You were nominated, but I have to ask, both Melissa and the folks from O Positive, they all talk about your interesting musical tastes and your wealth of knowledge. So could we talk about it a little bit?
Sure.
So you're plugged into these electronic and noise collectives and things like that. So when people talk about your interesting taste, what is it? What do you think they're talking about?
I guess I like a lot of different kinds of music, and I've always veered towards the freakier stuff just by nature. I think because I've been involved in a couple different collectives where, I can't pinpoint any one particular thing, but music's always been a part of my life. Just, I was actually a dancer when I was younger, and I think that kind of set the tone. My family's also fairly musical. There was always music being played in the house, and my dad plays the guitar, and that was just something I was always around. Currently, I think that my tastes are, I'll listen to anything that's good. I can't even be like, oh, I like this or that. But I do spend a lot of time listening to different subgenres of dance music and a lot of experimental, non-Western, out there, noise, drone, power electronics, what have you, kind of stuff. And with the dance music, I do, since I'm a DJ, that just, I end up listening to a lot, and also going to a lot of dance music nights and events. I used to throw parties with a collective called Cheryl in this city. We did it for about 10 years, and we toured around a bunch. And the whole idea was, we would DJ, we would play music, but it was more than just that, because nightlife is it's a type of social practice, and it's about creating a space where it's inclusive. You're inviting people in, and you're creating a situation where, those that are often marginalized can thrive.
Yeah.
And that's that's really my modus operandi for throwing parties anywhere. It's a space for everyone, and we take great pains to make sure it's it's a safer space. And I'm actually in the process of teaching a bunch of people in Hudson how to DJ, and we're starting a collective called Mostly Girls. So we're gonna start doing things with that. But yeah, I think it's important to give people tools so that they can do it themselves, and especially folks who might not have felt it was for them, or they didn't get access to it. And most of the time they're mostly girls or, non-male identifying folks. So because I've had that opportunity, I want to pass that along to other folks.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. I think that, like, in terms of, like, nightlife community, there is sort of, like, a group of people who feel more comfortable, like, they can, that it's, like, come as you are.
Definitely.
Mentality of, like, I don't know, I'm thinking of, like, nightlife type parties I've been to in the city. It's like 6 a.m. and there's a whole group of people that are like, they're just coming out now.
Yeah, definitely.
Like this is them going out for the night, and it's like, cool, great.
Yeah.
Like now we're gonna have this like weird party in this back room, or just like plants everywhere for some reason, and it's just like you don't understand how anybody got here, but it's like that community is so strong, and
Definitely.
and there is this very open space.
Yes.
Like everybody is allowed to have their own space, but it's also this community
Absolutely.
energy.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of those people are my friends for life.
Yeah.
And maybe they were my friends in a different life too, because the connection is very deep. But I also think in terms of what kinds of music I like, it's also important to honor the place that all of this came from, which is essentially music made by people of color, and just respecting that and kind of uplifting that and creating a space where that is acknowledged, because I think that's important as, techno and house and different kinds of electronic music become really popular in our, millennial culture, that we don't forget the origins of these things. So I think that's something to consider.
Like, where are you getting your beats from?
Yeah, definitely.
Like, what are you pulling from?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, some random old song, okay, but like, who did that song? And,
Right. And I mean, that's like every other genre of American music.
Yeah.
You could have that conversation.
Absolutely.
So that's just
Yeah,
something
I
to
mean, that's sort of a
consider.
conversation we were just having with our last guest, Jordan, who, is an Afrobeat percussionist, and
Cool.
has studied this, in Africa, and brought a lot of different things back. But, it's just not, as much as he's teaching other people, he's learning, because so much of this has been cut off from, the conversation.
Definitely.
But
And it is often in that kind of situation, it is about like a verbal, it's a heritage that's passed along verbally from generation to generation. So that's really important.
so not to switch topics in an abrupt manner, but did I see that you went to see Aphex Twin recently?
I did.
Very jealous.
It was, actually, okay, so I have a few things to say about that.
Okay. I'm all ears, because
Yeah, we were around in the 90s, and he hadn't been in New York. He hadn't played a show in New York in 20 years.
Yeah.
And I had never seen him. I didn't see him in the 90s, so I thought that this might be my once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Turns out he's way more approachable now. I don't know if you read the cover story, the Crack cover story, but he's a dad. He has, he's just like not as enigmatic.
yeah, he's
I
like, I'm
think,
just
as he used to
getting
be.
my music out there, making some money. Like, wait, who are you?
Yeah.
Have you been replaced?
Totally.
Yeah.
But his talent is just on some other, stratosphere. It's pretty interesting, because there was a debate for a while about how he was playing other artists' music at his shows, and people were like, how could he do that? What is he, just like a DJ? What's he doing? But all of those artists are so psyched that he's paying attention, and he's playing current music from, emerging artists. And he actually said in that article that he would think about what city he was in. He'd be like, okay, who do I know in this city? And he'd try to play a track from somebody who lived there, which I think is super cool.
Yeah.
Like, he's using his platform to uplift everyone. But the show itself was amazing, and Aisha Devi was the opener, and she was incredible. I don't know if you're familiar with her
Not
work.
very well, but I know of.
You'd like it.
Okay.
She does all these different things. She can do throat singing, like
Oh, whoa.
it's incredible. So she was great. And then his show, he played for like almost 2 hours, and the visuals were insane, and the lights were insane, and I thought I was gonna throw up from the bass. That's never happened to me
That's
before
awesome.
in my life. I'm the person that likes to stand in front of the tower, but I literally had to move away. It was so
Wow.
like there was a wind coming off of the like the stack. But yeah, it was incredible, and also just getting a sense of community, looking around at the people who were there. It was very evident that everyone was super excited, and it just felt historic. You know, there was this feeling of importance
Yeah.
and love. People have genuine love for this man.
Yeah.
So it was really nice. It was very good vibes. So
Yeah.
I like I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago when he was putting out new stuff for the first time in a while, and they were asking about like, you know, so did you make your keyboard, or what was, you know, how did you do this? And he's like, no, I just bought one, or, you know, like whatever, I use this software. And it's like, wait, what? The legend is you make your stuff and you won't touch anything. And he's like, no, whatever's easiest. They're like, who are you? You know, it was just very like nonchalant compared to all the legends about this guy who was insane in building his his gear and would only play, you know, original. But yeah, it's crazy to see. But it's rather than having someone tormented by their own demons, you have someone who's
Yeah.
actually putting out music, and you know, yeah.
maybe he found peace.
Yeah.
And you know, right after that, he flew to Coachella and played 2 shows, which I'm just curious what all those people thought of what he was doing, if they even knew who he was. I mean, I'm sure some people did, but who would have thought Aphex Twin at Coachella? That's
Yeah,
just weird.
it's really weird.
I don't know.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do?
I know.
So
Wow. No, it's interesting, like, when you can go to a show like that and you definitely feel the air is different. Like,
Yeah.
Like, you don't even have to look around. Like, you know, everybody's, like, paying very close attention.
yeah.
I feel like that happens a lot around here when we get, like, people who go away and come back. Like, they go away for a while and they come back to play, like, a hometown show. Like, Hand Habits just played
Oh, cool.
the church here and was, like, emotional. Like, they were like, I don't know, like, I really don't want to talk because I'm going to cry. Like,
Aw.
and everybody was just paying very close attention, and it was just very, like, I don't know, it was like tight knit and very
Yeah.
close feeling, and it happens every time another Michael comes to play. It's another like local band, and everybody just gets like completely silent and sings along. They opened for Pine Grove recently, and everybody was singing along to every word of every song, and I
Wow.
think the people who had come just for Pine Grove were kind of taken aback because they were like, what's happening right now? Like, this band invite their entire, like, extended family. It was just very, I mean, those are very powerful shows, I think.
Definitely.
So
Yeah.
it's, yeah,
Yeah.
nice to be a part of that. I think.
Definitely.
It's a different level of community because I feel like that
Sure.
word is used so much to mean a lot of different things, and there's a very, like, deep connection.
Well, it's again that feeling, that communal feeling like we were talking about with nightlife,
Right.
which I think is just
Yeah.
essentially sound can unite above all. And I started reading this book by Hazrat Inayat Khan. It's called Sound and the Sound and Mysticism. No, wait, the Mysticism of Sound and Music, and it's basically about how sound is all. That's our essence. That is what God is. I mean, if you want to take it a step further. So
Right.
if people are united at a concert in that way, there's something deeper going on.
Yeah.
I mean, sound is actually our first sense that we have in the womb. You know, kids can hear before they can do anything else. And actually, I had 3 friends at Drone who were pregnant, and I was like, I'm gonna cry. This is so beautiful. But, you know, and they actually said the babies were really active
Oh,
during
absolutely.
the event.
When my wife was pregnant, we actually saw a show here. I think it was the Radiohead ballet.
Whoa.
Yeah, and this Russian ballet just, it was all, and
cool.
my daughter was kicking like insane. And,
How she gets down to radio.
oh, absolutely. We have videos of her singing Radiohead like crazy. But,
Cute.
but yeah, she's more into metal these days, so that's a different story. But, she also, the other thing that like drove her nuts was we brought her in to do the heart test when she was there, and we were blown away because they said, now talk to her, and so I would talk, and she just started freaking out, and you saw the meter and you could see the response to the sound. So yeah, it's just,
Wow.
and I know
that's
that
beautiful.
you can tell that that the stuff she was listening to had an impact. It's very clear, but.
Yeah, my friend Drew Joy, who actually played drone last year, which was the culmination of a short residency he did at the Basilica, his partner, Linda, was one of my pregnant friends. He actually took a recording of the ultrasound and the heartbeat, and he made a drone track with it recently. And again, I was like, I'm gonna cry.
That's nuts.
So I was
I love that.
Yeah.
thinking
really
about
cool.
those kind of shows, but also there's this thing going around lately, like the artist that you got to meet that you weren't like disappointed in, you were actually happy about, or your first interview, and so the two that stuck out to me and were like the most sort of influential for high school and then early college. Where one was Neubauten, who no one ever thought Anschutz and Neubauten would come back to the U.S. and tour and all this stuff, and they weren't as raucous and crazy as they were in the early '90s and '80s, but
When did they come back?
in the late '90s.
Okay. I was like, did I miss it?
Well, no, not recently. They were planning a tour like 5 years ago, and then it fell apart for visa reasons, whatever. But they'd play like 3-night stands and then come back for like 3 albums in a row. So we'd skip high school and go. And I talked to Blixa, and that was, insane. But then the other one in college was Gary Newman was doing his industrial thing.
Oh, cool.
And so we go to those shows, and it was amazing. And then I got to interview him for my college paper, and he was the most open and giving interview I've ever had. And it was like a guy who's legendary, but also trying to be current, and so he was paying attention and wanted to reach people. So it was really neat. I just
That is
thinking
cool.
about those shows, everyone was paying attention because no one thought they'd see this person would ever have the opportunity, and But
Definitely.
Anyway.
And I think, you can even make the argument that subgenres of music, subcultures of music, are their own religions,
Yep.
and they have their high priestesses and their wizards and, their followers and people who dress like them.
Yeah.
It's like,
Well,
Yeah.
like the idea that Nick Cave is touring, and part of his tour now is a talk. That you can just
Oh,
he tells
interesting.
stories, and you can just talk to him because everyone sees his life as
Whoa.
Yeah.
he's had a lot, he's dealt with a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
That's
yeah,
really
his new tour,
cool.
he's coming through Northampton to do that again. It's like the
Really?
second time. Yep.
At the Pearl.
No, it's like a performing arts center, or maybe the college, maybe the Smith College auditorium.
He did
Okay.
was it a residency or the exhibit that he had at?
No, it's a different one. That's a different Nick Cave.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, my mom did that too.
They
but-
need to collaborate though.
Yes.
I mean, when is that
Yep.
going to happen? That would be
When was
amazing.
that? It was
2 years
and
ago.
years ago.
Yeah. But yeah, he toured. He's been touring a lot too. So. But
Yeah.
Anyway.
Very cool.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Sure. Thank you for having me.
When is O positive again?
O
did it.
positive in Kingston is it's the same weekend as I'm going to say Indigenous Peoples Day, which I think is October 13 through 15, but it's that long weekend. This time it's falling a little bit later than it usually does. It's more mid-month, so you got time to think about it. But tickets, wristbands will go on sale a little bit deeper into the summer. You can sign up for our mailing list if you go on the O Positive website, so you can
Are you going to Soundscape?
oh no. I mean, I love Soundscape and the lineup is incredible, as it always is. There's another festival that happens the same weekend
What is it?
called Sustain Release. It's a techno-based electronic music festival.
Very cool.
And I went last year, and I meant to go one night and then leave and go to Soundscape the second night, and I had
Every
to call
time-
them,
yeah.
and I was like, you guys, I can't leave.
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe someday they won't be on the same weekend, but I have to go to Sustained Release
Understood.
again. So it was highly religious again. So what can I say? But,
Gotcha.
but it's gonna be, Soundscape is gonna be so
great.
rad.
Yeah.
It feels like it was tailored to my taste at the moment, so I'm really excited. It'll be a religious
Yeah.
experience for me, but
Yeah, definitely. And they haven't even finished
I
announcing
know.
the lineup.
It's
so
ridiculous.
There's some surprises coming.
Surprise. Awesome.
Well, we'll see you in October, if not sooner.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, sounds good. Hopefully before that, because there's a film that Zeb is making about drone.
Yes.
Right. So
Yeah, well,
we should get together and
Coming
have
up soon.
have a screening and eat some
Yes,
popcorn.
that's right.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Relive all of our.
Can't wait to share it. It's. I
Yeah.
mean, he's committed to doing all the performances in surround sound. For some
Wow.
reason. He was unhappy with the fact that he only had stereo, so he's getting the full. He's mailing a
Hell
hard
yeah.
drive to get the.
I know,
yeah.
the Tyler.
Yep.
It's gonna be
I
great.
could have gotten it from him since I was.
These things.
Yeah. So anyway,
Yeah.
cool.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.